I think we need to talk about this mathematical permutation where Oscar's ahead of Lando, Max is winning the race. Does Oscar give Lando the position or not, right? Because the boys have been asked the question. There's a lot of discourse going on and a lot of disagreement, and I don't really get the disagreement because to me the answer is very, very clear and very, very obvious. Now, again, Max Verstappen leading the Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri P3, Lando Norris P4. This scenario, if this was to play out, would result in Max Verstappen winning the title ahead of Lando Norris. If Lando Norris was to get P3 and Max Verstappen P1, Lando wins the title. As long as Lando gets on the podium, he's won the title, whatever happens, okay? Doesn't matter where Oscar, doesn't matter where Max finishes either, okay? Obviously, Oscar's going to give Lando the position if that is how it turns out. Now, of course, many things can happen in Formula One. Cars can get disqualified after the race, technical DNFs, etc, etc. I wouldn't expect Oscar to give Lando the position in any position other than the final corner of the final lap. But of course he would do it. Obviously he would do it. The thing is, if that is the scenario, whether Lando has the car disqualified after the race, Max the same, doesn't matter. Of course, if they both got disqualified, then Oscar wins the championship anyway, because he would inherit, P2, and that would be enough to get it done. 18 points for P2, remember, and he's 16 behind Lando. He's going to be at this team for the foreseeable future. Like, I know there's, potential, maybe Oscar gets a bit disenfranchised with McLaren. I don't believe in anytime soon. I think he's got a fantastic relationship with Lando. I think if McLaren can stop trying to overly micromanage, as I spoke about in my last video, then they're on to a good thing with them too. Credit to McLaren for keeping them two sweet with one another. I think that's come from them as well as individuals. They've very much kept it on track, and that is refreshing to see. But imagine Oscar, through essentially just spitefulness, because a P3 podium is not going to change his world, deciding to not give Lando the position. Because let's say, right, okay, Oscar's P3, Lando's P4. Say the top two get disqualified. Say Max and let's say George is P2. They both get disqualified. Oscar gets the win then. Lando gets P2. 7 points. Oscar still loses the championship to Lando. Like, there is no permutation where it is in Oscar's best interest if Lando finishes that Grand Prix either directly behind him, directly in front of him. It's 16 points. It's too big a gap, right? And Oscar's going to be at this team for the foreseeable, and he would be the guy who chose not to let Lando through when there was no hope for him. And I'm saying, like, you wait until the last corner of the last lap, because Lando could conk out. Max could conk out on the last lap. There's no way Oscar should be expected to do that before the last corner of the last lap. But if that is how it plays out, of course he would do it, That would be forever held against him. Of course it would, by McLaren. Like, they might say it wouldn't be, but of course it would. And it would forever be held against him by Lando Norris, because of course it would be. And Lando's literally said in the presser he'd do it for Oscar, which is definitely him planting a seed, as he should. But again, why wouldn't you give that position up? Like, there is literally no reason why, in that context, that you wouldn't do it on the last lap. If I was Tom Stallard on the radio to Oscar, you would just be like, we're in this situation. Currently, Max is P1, you're P3, Lando's P4. Max will win the championship as it stands. If you give Lando P3, he will win the championship. Just give Oscar the information. You don't need to, because I didn't like the way McLaren tried to they were just going in on Lando in Hungary, right? When they were telling Lando last year, wasn't it? To give back the position, Papaya rules, all that stuff. And just kept going on at him constantly. Will Joseph having this big dialogue on the radio. Tom Stallard doesn't need to tell Oscar anything more than that. Oscar knows what the situation is. Just give him that information, and then, like, doesn't matter how much the team remind him. Like, Oscar will make that decision. The team don't drive the car. The driver drives the car. If Oscar doesn't give Lando P3 and Max wins the title, like, I can't even fathom how there's any belief. And look, if Oscar was to do it, then that would be a stupid thing to do. That would be a stupid thing to do. That would be a short-sighted thing to do. It'd be a spiteful thing to do, because there's nothing for him to gain by holding on to that P3, this arbitrary P3, that probably almost certainly won't even happen. It won't even go this way. But the fact that it's, look, there's so much going on in this title fight, and I get that people want to create timelines and talk about stories and really beef this up, you know, hype this one. But I don't think you need to. Like, this is just a bit of a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. And Oscar's got a hope for a miracle. Of course he has. He's got a hope that Max and Lando run into each other. And even if Oscar does win, he needs to make sure Lando still doesn't finish on the podium. And he can't do that. You know, he can't control what happens to other drivers. One bad qualifying session could change things. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc seems a bit more confident that the Ferrari is going to be in a better place this weekend, at least compared to last time out in Qatar. And I mean, George Russell felt like his car was absolutely capable of, you know, finishing on the podium in Qatar had he not been stuck in traffic for the entire Grand Prix. So maybe in Abu Dhabi, I'd expect some pace from Mercedes as well. I think the Ferrari and the Mercedes boys will be a factor. However, Oscar's massive long shot for him. Of course, he would give the position up if that is how it played out. And look, him and Max don't have anything to lose. Like, even Max, 12 points is still a very long shot. As long as Lando finishes on the podium, it's done. Max will be aggressive. Oscar's entitled to be aggressive. And, you know, if he goes for a move on Lando and it results in a crash, like, that would be less bad. Honestly, that would be less bad. Oscar going for it, YOLO send, and taking out Lando, maybe taking out both of them and Max winning the title. That would be less bad, because at least Oscar's gone for it and tried something and it's not paid off, whatever, papaya rules, blah, blah, blah. That would be less bad than him just out of principle for a P3 he won't even care about, not giving Lando the position and Max winning the title, because that is a very conscious, and again, they've got a good relationship. Very clearly, Lando and Oscar have a very good mutual relationship with one another. Again, I think McLaren are trying too hard. They don't need to try as hard as they are. I think the boys have got it sorted. It's just silly. I just watched some of the coverage and the discussion and the sentiment online about this whole scenario, and I'm like, what are we talking about here? Of course you give up the position. And some of the other drivers have been saying, oh, under no circumstances would you expect. Yeah, not until the last corner of the last lap. But you can guarantee they would expect it of their teammate in the last corner of the last lap, as they should, because again, there's nothing for Oscar to gain, nothing for him to benefit from doing that. Even if we're talking about cars getting disqualified post-race, blah, blah, blah. Even in that scenario, there is still nothing for him to gain by giving up that position. So, what can I say? Look, we're all excited. We're all hyped. We're all ready. Can't wait for FP1 tomorrow, okay? But let's not be foolish here. Let's not be silly. Let's leave the drivers to it. McLaren aren't doing any other media, which I think good for the team, just to kind of take the pressure off a bit. Max just looks like he's rocked up in a sim racing lobby. He's probably more nervous when he's starting a Nürburgring 24-hour for Team Redline than he is right now, because he's just fully like, what will be will be. And that is I wonder if anyone's ever gone into a season finale with a chance of winning the title and been this relaxed. I'm not sure if there has been, like, ever, right? It is a pretty insane circumstance, but it is what it is. And look, anything can happen, which is exactly what we want. We don't want this to be a boring Abu Dhabi race. Typically, Abu Dhabi isn't a blinder, but we do have the softer tyre compound range, so hopefully that makes a two-stop viable. Maybe a slightly different strategy. Split strategies would be cool this time out, and what will be, will be. Anyway, that was just me rambling for 10 minutes. Thank you for listening. If you did like this waffle chat, whatever, drop a like, subscribe, get involved. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.